There's a moment that exists between your last breath and death, a silence so absolute, time itself stops. Ancient samurai warriors discovered how to enter this space while still alive, and what they found was a psychological technology so dangerous it was hidden for centuries. As you scroll, check notifications, and bounce between distractions, something catastrophic is happening to your mind. You're being systematically weakened, fragmented, and controlled. And the terrifying part: you think this chaos is normal, but warriors who faced death daily knew something different. They developed mental techniques that could rewire the entire nervous system, turning fear into fuel and chaos into unshakable calm. Modern neuroscience is just now confirming what they proved centuries ago. Your mind is either your greatest weapon or your most devastating enemy. There is no middle ground. If you're ready to access the forbidden knowledge that can transform your mind into an unbreakable fortress, subscribe now, because what comes next, there's no going back. Did you know there's a silence that exists just before a sword strikes? A perfect absolute stillness where time itself seems to bend. The ancient samurai knew this silence intimately. They called it the space between breath and death, between thought and action, between the self that suffers and the self that transcends. What they discovered in that quiet space wasn't just a fighting technique, it was a psychological architecture so powerful it could completely rewire the human mind. And they guarded this knowledge like a forbidden text, because they understood something we've forgotten in our modern chaos. The greatest battle you'll ever fight isn't against any external enemy. It's against the untamed wilderness of your own consciousness. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because this isn't information they teach in universities or self-help seminars. This is the shadow knowledge, the kind of mental technology that monasteries kept hidden for centuries, that warrior traditions encoded in cryptic teachings, afraid of what would happen if an unprepared mind tried to wield it. The samurai didn't just train their bodies, they systematically deconstructed their psychological defenses, rebuilt their neural pathways, and created an internal fortress that nothing could penetrate. Not fear, not desire, not even the primal human terror of death itself. You're living in a world designed to fragment your attention, to keep you weak, scattered, perpetually reacting instead of acting. Every notification, every dopamine trigger, every manufactured crisis is an assault on your mental sovereignty. Your ancestors would look at you and see a prisoner who has forgotten he's in chains. Because modern life has done something insidious. It's convinced you that the chaos in your head is normal, that the constant anxiety, the racing thoughts, the inability to sit still with yourself for even 5 minutes without reaching for a screen, that this is just how human consciousness works. But the warriors of old would tell you differently. They'd say you're living in a dream, a comfortable nightmare where you've traded your mental freedom for the illusion of safety and convenience. The first principle of the Zen samurai system is brutal in its simplicity. You must die before you die. Not metaphorically, not as some poetic notion, actually psychologically completely. The samurai practiced a meditation they called death contemplation, where they would sit for hours visualizing their own body rotting, being consumed by worms, returning to dust. Why? Because they understood that your fear of death is the root of every other fear you carry. It's why you hesitate, why you compromise, why you live a half-life of quiet desperation, terrified of taking the risks that would make you fully alive. They knew that if you could sit face to face with your own mortality, really confront the absolute certainty that you will cease to exist, something extraordinary happens. The petty anxieties dissolved. What remains is a kind of terrifying freedom, a clarity so sharp it cuts through every illusion you've been hiding behind. But death contemplation was just the beginning. The deeper technology involved something they called mind fasting. Just as you fast from food to reset your body, the samurai would fast from thought itself. They would enter extended periods of sensory deprivation, sitting in complete darkness and silence, allowing every mental construct, every identity, every story they told themselves about who they were, to fall away. In the modern world, you're addicted to mental stimulation the same way a drug addict is addicted to their substance. You can't tolerate the void, so you fill every moment with noise, with distraction, with the endless scroll, anything to avoid the confrontation with the raw, unfiltered experience of your own consciousness. The warriors knew that this avoidance makes you weak, that real power comes from the ability to sit in that void and not break, to watch your mind cannibalize itself and emerge on the other side transformed. This path isn't for everyone, but for those brave enough to walk it, the prize is something the modern world can never offer: true mental freedom. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more content on unlocking your true potential. Did you know that ancient samurai practices are now being understood by modern psychology? Let's talk about something they called mind fasting. It's a process where your brain starts to reset its baseline. Think about all those automatic reactions and habits you have. Mind fasting helps dissolve them. The you that panics under stress, the you that needs validation from others, the you that avoids discomfort, all these constructed parts of your identity start to crumble. It sounds terrifying, right? It can feel like dying, because in a way, it is. It's what's known as ego death. You're systematically taking apart the defense mechanisms you've built to shield yourself from reality. But on the other side of this is a state they called no mind. It's a state of consciousness where you're no longer trapped by your conditioning. You start responding to life with true spontaneity because there's no frightened self holding you back. The samurai combined this mental technique with a practice called negative visualization. Every single morning they would vividly imagine losing everything they valued. Their home burning down, their family gone, their honor destroyed, their own body broken. This wasn't about being pessimistic. It was psychological inoculation. They were training their nervous system to find internal stability, no matter what was happening externally. See, here's the trap most of us fall into. We think happiness comes from getting things, achieving goals, or reaching some perfect future state. But this makes us fragile. It means our peace of mind is held hostage by a world we can't control. The warrior's path was different. It was about learning to find unshakable stability in the middle of total chaos, cultivating an internal strength that doesn't depend on anything outside of you. So, stop for a moment and really ask yourself, what would be left of you if everything you used to define yourself was stripped away? Your job, your relationships, your possessions, your achievements, your entire identity. If it all vanished overnight, what would remain? This question terrifies many people today because for most, the answer feels like nothing, just a collection of roles and masks we wear. The samurai system was designed to forge that solid core, to create an unbreakable center that exists independent of any circumstance. The process of forging it is incredibly difficult because it requires you to voluntarily let go of everything false about yourself before life forces you to. Now, let's explore a concept they called killing the self. This isn't about self-destruction. It's far more radical. It's the recognition that the self you think you are, that narrator in your head constantly judging, comparing, and protecting, is a fiction. It's a useful story your brain tells itself to make sense of the world, but it isn't fundamentally real. And that story is the source of so much of our suffering. Every time you feel insulted, it's because that story self feels threatened. Every time you feel anxious, it's because that story self is trying to control a future that hasn't happened yet. The warriors discovered that you can simply observe this self, see it for what it is, like a mental software program. And in that observation, something powerful shifts. You realize you're not the program. You are the awareness that is watching the program run. And from that perspective, everything changes. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more insights into a stronger mindset. Ever heard of a training method designed for humiliation? Ancient samurai would deliberately put themselves in situations to provoke and trigger them. Public insults, manufactured failures, scenarios designed to make the ego flare up in defense. And they would practice watching that reaction without identifying with it. They'd watch the anger, the shame, the desperate need to explain, but they wouldn't act. They'd just observe it, like watching clouds pass across the sky. This is incredibly difficult. Our entire psychological structure is built on the idea that we are our reactions, that we must defend our self-story at all costs. But the more you practice this kind of detached observation, the more space opens up between a stimulus and your response. And in that space, my friends, lives true freedom. The modern world has made us reactive. We're triggered constantly, thrown off balance by every notification, every comment, every external event. We're controlled by forces we don't even recognize. The samurai system teaches the exact opposite, absolute non-reactivity. This isn't about suppressing your feelings or being a stoic robot. It's genuine freedom from emotional tyranny. Emotions still arise, but they don't control you. They become weather patterns moving through your internal landscape, and you are the unshakable mountain that watches them pass. It's the difference between being swept away by a raging river and standing on the bank, watching it flow. Both experiences are real, but only one gives you choice. But there's something darker they understood about the human mind. Your comfort is killing you. Every time you choose the easy path, the safe option, the comfortable lie, you are participating in your own psychological decay. The mind, just like the body, requires resistance to stay strong. Without challenge, without difficulty, without the need to adapt and overcome, it weakens. It becomes fragile and dependent. This is why so many people in our modern age feel empty despite having every material comfort imaginable. They've optimized their lives for ease and, in doing so, have lost the friction that creates meaning and purpose. The samurai deliberately sought out hardship, not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they understood that power is forged in resistance. The strongest blade is the one that has been through the hottest fire and the coldest water. Your mind is no different. They had a practice, now mostly lost to time, called discomfort training. It involves systematically exposing oneself to progressively more intense forms of physical and psychological discomfort, sitting in ice water until the mind separates from the sensation, fasting until hunger becomes just another phenomenon to observe, maintaining difficult physical postures until pain transforms from an enemy into a teacher. The point wasn't the suffering itself. The point was to rewire the relationship between consciousness and discomfort. We've been trained to avoid discomfort at all costs, to medicate it, distract from it, solve it away instantly. But discomfort is just information. It's your nervous system communicating with you. When you can sit with it, truly sit with it, without the desperate need to make it stop, you access a level of mental fortitude that most people will never know. Think about your daily life for a moment. How much of it is organized around avoiding even the slightest discomfort? The temperature is always perfectly regulated. Food is always available. Entertainment is just a click away. We've built ourselves cocoons of comfort, and inside these cocoons, we've become soft, not just physically but mentally and spiritually. The warrior traditions knew that true strength requires voluntary hardship. You must actively seek out the edges of your tolerance and push past them, not just once in a while, but as a way of life. This is why they trained in extreme conditions in storms, in freezing cold, in remote caves, pushing their bodies and minds to the absolute limit. They were calibrating their nervous systems to remain calm and focused under the most intense pressure imaginable. After that, the challenges of normal life would feel like nothing in comparison. They weren't just training for a battle, they were training for life itself. And that's a lesson we desperately need to relearn today. Thanks for watching. Ever wonder why you feel a constant low-level suffering no matter how good things get? There's a psychological secret, discovered centuries ago by samurai warriors, that explains it perfectly. Your mind creates pain by constantly comparing your present reality to some imagined ideal. You measure what asterisk is asterisk against what you asterisk think should be asterisk, and that gap is where all your suffering lives. The samurai had a system for this. They practiced radical acceptance. But this isn't the passive, just go with the flow stuff you hear today. It was an active, powerful recognition of what is, without adding that layer of mental resistance that causes emotional turmoil. When you stop arguing with reality, when you stop wishing things were different, something incredible happens. You can finally respond to situations with perfect clarity. All your power becomes available for action, instead of being drained by your internal conflict. They practiced a meditation called oneness with the moment. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult. It means being completely present with whatever is happening right now, without your mind's constant commentary and judgment. When you eat, you just eat. When you walk, you just walk. When you face a challenge, you face it with total attention, no thought of past or future. No calculating odds, just pure unfiltered presence. In that state, they said, you become like water. You flow effortlessly around obstacles. You adapt to any situation, but you never lose your essential nature. Think about it. This is the exact opposite of how most of us live. We're always somewhere else in our heads, planning, remembering, worrying. We're almost never truly asterisk here, asterisk. That deep loneliness you might feel, that ache that no amount of social connection seems to soothe. The samurai would say it's because you've never actually been alone. You've been stuck alone with your thoughts, your fears, and your mental noise. You haven't experienced true solitude, the kind where the self dissolves and all that remains is pure awareness. Samurai would go on solo retreats into the mountains for months, completely cut off from everyone, and in that profound isolation they discovered something most modern people find impossible to believe. You are never truly alone. The feeling of isolation is created by the ego, that false belief that you are a separate little entity, cut off from everything else. When that illusion dissolves, what's revealed is a deep, cosmic interconnection. You realize you're not just a wave separate from the ocean. You asterisk the ocean, expressing itself as a wave for a little while. If this resonates with you, if something in these words is stirring a recognition deep inside, I want you to leave a comment below. Answer this one question. What part of yourself are you most afraid to face in solitude? Because that's where your real transformation begins. That's the door you need to walk through, and I want to hear what you find on the other side. The samurai had a concept called warrior's joy. This isn't happiness in the way we think of it. It's not about fleeting pleasure. It's the fierce, raw aliveness that comes from living completely on your edge, from embracing your own mortality so fully that every single moment becomes vivid, intense, and precious. Modern culture teaches us to chase pleasure and avoid pain at all costs, but in doing so we flatten our entire emotional experience. We end up living in a narrow gray band of mild satisfaction and mild discontent, never truly reaching the peaks or valleys where real life actually happens. The warrior path is different. It says to lean into intensity. Seek out the experiences that make you feel most alive, even if they terrify you. Especially if they terrify you, because fear is just excitement with the emergency brake pulled. When you finally release that brake, life becomes extraordinary. Modern neuroscience is now confirming what these warriors knew all along. Your brain is plastic. It physically rewires itself based on what you practice. Every thought you think, every action you take, every emotional response you have, it's all carving neural pathways that become your automatic default over time. Most people, without realizing it, have carved pathways of weakness, avoidance, distraction, emotional reactivity, and learned helplessness. But you can choose to carve new pathways. Pathways of presence, courage, and warrior's joy. The choice, as always, is yours. Thanks for watching. Ever heard of the samurai? We think of swords and battles, but their real war was fought inside the mind. The samurai system wasn't just about fighting. It was about deliberately carving new pathways in your brain. pathways of discipline, presence, courage, and self-mastery. But here's the catch. You can't just think your way into it. This isn't a self-help book you read once and forget. You have to practice it, physically and mentally, day in and day out. You have to repeat these new patterns until they become stronger than your old, lazy ones. Until your default reaction to a challenge isn't to shrink back, but to step forward. Until discomfort feels like a familiar friend, not something to run away from. The most dangerous teaching of the samurai tradition is this: you are capable of so much more than you believe. And I don't mean that in a cheesy inspirational poster kind of way. I mean it literally. Your perceived limits, they're almost entirely psychological constructs. That little voice in your head that whispers, "I can't," that's not reality talking. That's your fear trying to keep you safe. It's your ego defending its small, comfortable territory. It's the old you, trying to stop the new you from being born. The ancient warriors proved this time and time again by doing things that seemed impossible. They didn't have superhuman genetics. They just systematically dismantled their self-imposed limitations. They trained their minds to stay calm and focused in situations where most people would completely panic. They built an internal stability so unshakable that the chaos of the outside world couldn't touch them. Think about it. Every great warrior tradition, from the samurai in Japan to the Spartans in Greece, to the monks of Shaolin, they all discovered the same fundamental truth. Your mind is either your greatest asset or your most dangerous enemy. There is no middle ground. If you don't consciously take control of it, train it, and discipline it, it will control you. It will drag you into endless cycles of frustration, reaction, and suffering. It will keep you trapped in the same old patterns that don't serve you, making the same mistakes over and over. It will convince you that you're powerless, when in reality, you hold all the cards. Think about the constant notifications, the endless scrolling, the culture of distraction and dependence. They want you reactive. But you have a choice. You can continue living as a passenger in your own mind, being tossed around by every thought and emotion, or you can step up and become the master of your own ship. But I have to be honest with you. This path requires something that most people aren't willing to give. Everything half measures simply won't work. You couldn't just meditate once in a while or practice discipline only when you feel like it and expect a profound transformation. The warrior path demands total commitment. Why? Because what you're attempting is nothing less than a complete psychological reconstruction. You're not just trying to improve your current self, you're trying to transcend it entirely. You're not just trying to manage your emotions a little better. You're building a foundation so solid that no emotional storm can ever destabilize you again. This is the work of years, of decades, of a lifetime. It's not a quick fix, but here's the beautiful part. Every single moment you practice it, you become different, a little stronger, a little freer, a little more alive. Each conscious breath, each moment of choosing discipline over distraction, forges you into someone new. Now, I want to share a teaching they reserved only for the most dedicated students, the ones who had proven they could handle the truth. It's called the Great Doubt. It's the radical recognition that everything you think you know, including these very teachings, your identity, your entire understanding of reality, might be completely wrong. It's the idea that all of it is just a story, a map, a layer of concepts we've placed over raw, direct experience. The only way to know the real truth is to strip away every map, every teaching, every belief, and just see what remains. This is probably the most terrifying and, at the same time, the most liberating realization you can have. It means there's no solid ground to stand on, no final answer, no ultimate security blanket. There's only this moment, this breath, this raw, unfiltered experience of being alive. And guess what? That's enough. It has always been enough. If you're ready to continue this journey, to unlock more of these forbidden archives of the mind and go deeper into the shadow knowledge that can transform you completely, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because what I've shared today is just the tip of the iceberg. There are practices, techniques, and psychological technologies that go far beyond what can be explained in a single video. The path of the warrior mind isn't for everyone. It requires the courage to face all the things you've been avoiding your whole life. It requires the discipline to practice even when every fiber of your being wants to quit. And it requires a kind of ruthless honesty with yourself that most people never develop. But if you're still here, still listening, then something inside you recognizes this truth. Something in you is ready to stop being weak and become dangerous. Not dangerous to others, but dangerous to the forces both inside and out that want to keep you small, controlled, and afraid. Imagine the silence right before a samurai strikes. That perfect moment of pure potential before action. That's where you live now. You can stay in the dream, in the comfortable nightmare of modern existence, or you can choose to wake up. You can continue being reactive and controlled by your environment and your own mind, or you can become the master of your own consciousness. The choice has always been yours. The samurai, the Spartans, the monks, they just showed us that it's possible. They showed us there's a way through the chaos. That on the other side of every fear, every limitation, every comfortable lie you tell yourself, there's a version of you that's unbreakable. The only question left is, are you willing to let the old you die to become it? Thanks for watching.